Hello again. Thanks for being here. I'm going to do a little sound before we get started. Today is about sound and language and just some interesting things I've learned in the last few months of studying language and different languages. And so I want to share that. So what I consider like codes, hidden codes. Okay, and some theories. So before we get started, a little sound. Sound vibration. I do love the samples. Okay, so if you've been listening to my videos, first of all, language fascinates me, especially English and words, and then through that, over time, just kind of discovering that words have oftentimes hidden meanings, or we've been using words incorrectly in certain situations. And so it just kind of led me down a path of words, and then I learned about gematria through mainly through Zach Hubbard on YouTube, who does Gematria Effects News, or Gematria News Effects, where he goes into the details of the numbers. My number, well, not my number, but the number that I think is rooted in a lot of magic and illusion, because of its power, is 9. And I've done other videos about the number 9, and I probably will do some more in the future, but mostly through that is discovering that all of these things are actually originally symbols, and symbols can get mistranslated. So I had done a video about a year ago where I theorized that language used to be more round, more circular, have more curves to it. I had actually gotten a download from the planet that things were more curvy. So just to show you what I'm talking about, so this was my theory about the number, or the symbol 5. Okay, that video, where you can see it's very curvy. Then and I talked about 3 and 4. I didn't get into that, but I have theories about that. And here's a picture of that. Okay, and then my theory, my ultimate theory, is this is the true number 1, and that over time we've been coded. So that's what brings me to today. So I've been studying Hebrew now for about 6 months on Duolingo. So what I'm learning is that some of these platforms, of course, because they're like digital or over an app, there might be again some translational loss, or even cultural loss, so to speak. So I've been studying Hebrew and learning the different alphabets, different characters in the alphabet, learning about what they mean and some of the symbolism. Well, and this is on YouTube, I found a lady who is teaching the Hebrew alphabet as well. And then she also talks about the Niquid, which is one of the terms I had forgotten when I was talking about the language of Hebrew. When it comes to vowels and sounds of vowels, they add little dots. They add little dots. Oh, is it backwards for you? I never can tell until I watch the video. But, and what's interesting is after I made the little symbols, it kind of looks like a smiley face with the tongue hanging out. So it makes me, you know, when it comes to symbols and such, who knows how far back they go and what other meanings they have in other languages. Just, I mean, memes alone, like meme is a, what is that called? I think it's a tetrahedron. When there's letters repeating, there's only a certain amount of letters. Like Yahweh is another one. So, the lady that I found on YouTube, she described not only the Niquid very well, but also describes how there is different writings of Hebrew. And so I made a little chart because it reminded me of the video that I had been, that I just shared those pictures of, where the download was that our writing used to be more curvy. So, for example, the A, which is typically written like this, which I also went into, like, it looks like the X chromosome in our bodies. Well, it's the actual writing. So there's print, which is what we're mostly familiar with, which looks more like this. And then there's script, which looks, look at how curvy all that is. I got very excited. And also was a little shocked because, like, Bet, and because that's the other thing. On some platforms, I've seen where B does not have the dot. And then I've seen where V has the dot. And then I've heard both. But what's happened today is mostly the writing, because you're learning the language. You don't need the dots because of, it's kind of like in English, like with okay, you don't have to write the AY at the end of it. We understand what you're saying. You don't have to write the whole full word. So it's kind of similar to that, but with dots. Okay. So I wanted to, okay, so A, so doesn't that also look like a 1? So it looks like a 1 and a C. It could also look like a K. Even the Aleph in print looks like a K. And so this is where I think a lot of things were, it became unplugged. Maybe I might pause and plug it back in. I think we're doing okay. Anyhow. Gosh darn it. What was I saying? Oh, okay. So the Bet and Vet look like a 5. The Gimel looks almost like a 5 or an S. The Dalet looks like a 2. Zayin also looks like a 5. It is actually a backwards Gimel. Isn't that interesting? Tet looks like a 6. Lamed looks like almost like a figure 8. And then, so I didn't do the whole alphabet, but most of them are pretty curvy like this, except for the more basic letters, say like H or Hey, Vav. There's a couple others. I have up here. But when you have like, and then we're talking about a little bit, because like I said, I have my theory about the number 9. Anyhow, pay and pay sofit. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the sofit. Sadiq is another one. The Y symbol looks like a 3. That was kind of mind blowing. I should put that one on there. I will put it on there really quickly. So I mentioned the number 9 because another thing is my theory, just because of nature and what seems somewhat logical, is that the alphabet may have had originally 27 letters or 24 letters rather than 22, because 22 equals 4. And my theory is that we always brought things back to 9. And there is a video on Gaiam TV that literally, he talks about this, where Fibonacci and all those things, they all come back to 9. 9, 9, 9, 9. 9. 9 is the number. So, as I was studying this part of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph Bet, is there are letters that change. We don't have that in English. Isn't that kind of cool? So pay, where I'm going to show you how it changes. And there's several of them. Pay, mem, and nun, as well as kaf. And is that it? I think so. Their letters change. Their letters change. Isn't that interesting? I find that really cool because I think it kind of expresses the creativity of us. And you know, again, like these languages were created. So when the stones went down, those, gosh, I'm having a blank. What were those called? Oh, I have to look it up. Totally drawing a blank right now. Hopefully it'll come through. Okay. So, I want to show you this. So, with the letters changing, it proposes me, does that mean that there's actually more letters, but they're not considered in the original Aleph Bet? But ultimately, it might actually equal 29? Or a number of 3, 6, or 9. Okay, so I'm going to show you Sadiq, which looks like a Y in our alphabet. Okay, I'm going to show you. So I find these the most fascinating. Well, not the most fascinating, but pretty fascinating. So here's pay, which typically makes the p sound, or depending on what characters might be around it or what liquid may be around it. But look at that. In the script, doesn't that look like a 3? And doesn't that look like a 6? And this kind of looks like a fancy F. So, is it possible that some of the old writing, like through this, we're supposed to be able to read like the ancient writings, because the script and the print are completely different. And that, to me, is a type of a code. I find it fascinating. I didn't know if you guys know that. I'm sure people who are Jewish and have been speaking and learning Hebrew for a long time are aware of this. And these are other things, like this is a major language, and this language has influenced other languages. So that brings me into the Latin and Roman alphabet. So there's a big hint right there. We call all other languages alphabets. They call their alphabet an alphabet. That's big. One language whose first 2 letters are Aleph and Bet, all other languages are called alphabet? Isn't that a huge hint? I think that's a huge hint. That Hebrew is actually more imbued in our language than we may have known. Because, okay, so then I also started looking into Latin because, why did I start looking into Latin? There was something that made me think, it's probably some show I was watching. And when it comes to like Catholicism, most everything was in Latin. A lot of their prayers are in Latin. Their old Bibles are in Latin. We're not taught Latin. They used to be taught Latin. My mom's like, no one uses Latin anymore. However, this is what I found interesting. So the Latin alphabet and Roman alphabet are the same as the English alphabet. Okay? And then here's some words that I found interesting. In Latin, male, so in English, how we spell male, M-A-L-E, is male in Latin, which very similar to Spanish, mal, right? Bad. But it's spelled like male. Did you know that is how you say he in Latin? And ego is how you say I in Latin. I find some trickery in that because we talk about the ego, which means we're talking about the I, technically, right? And then when we say he is doing something, we're actually, in Latin, we're saying he. I wonder what he means in Latin. Hey, maybe? And then, my favorite, because of the Sibyls and the goddess and my whole relation to all that, is mater. Mater is how you say mother in Latin. And so we have the word matter that we relate to materialism, to the matrix, to the mother. And then in Latin, it's actually pronounced mater. And in Latin and Roman, where did they get a lot of their information? From Egypt. And then we're still trying to figure out, where Egypt got its information. And then we go into Thoth. I'm still under the theory that Thoth was either like a hermaphrodite or a female. I think most of the teachings have been handed down through females, and I think more and more of this information will come out, just like the number 9. I didn't take notes. I'm going to watch it again because I was kind of tired last night, but it was also kind of enthralling. So before I jump off, and then, that's the other thing. And before I had kind of mentioned like maybe Bet is like a pregnant belly, and I looked up belly and it does start with a B in Hebrew. I wrote it down somewhere, but that's not with me right now. But the 2 looking symbol is also, this is like 1, 2. I said this one looks like 3, 6. Another one that looks like 6. And then to say and or is actually like A is Aleph Vav in the alphabet, but it also looks like AI, which I just find interesting. Just things I wanted to share because what it looks like to me. And then I'm also not as hardcore. My major languages that I'm studying on Duolingo are Hebrew. Hebrew is number 1. And then Spanish, which I know a lot of already, so it just makes me feel good on Duolingo because I learn stuff, but then also I kind of get to practice a little bit more. And then Latin, and then Chinese, Vietnamese, and Portuguese. A lot less. Those are the Chinese is actually in there because I have family members that speak Chinese. They speak English as well, but, And then I have in-laws that are Vietnamese, and I thought it would just be interesting to learn some more. So in that, what is just mostly what I've seen is that English specifically, because the other languages, similar to Hebrew with characters, and then similar to Latin and Roman with alphabet. So like in the Chinese, those are characters. And then in, say, like Vietnamese, there's an alphabet, right? An alphabet. Like, every language calls it that. Like, what? Wait a second. It's just, my theory is that all of these languages are a component of, I think, Hebrew, original symbols, or original symbols of different language, probably maybe Cumaic, Sumerian. And that with Latin and Roman, and English is like this pre-spelled language. We're just speaking. I've said this before, but I feel like this is just more and more information coming, that there are keys and codes within English that unless you understand the other languages, we might not have any idea. Like calling the male gender male, when in Latin it means bad. I mean, couldn't we have maybe thought of another word for that? Masculine, and then within those words, it's like, I think the subconscious is aware of the vibrations that go along with that, right? Even when we say female, because in Latin it's feminine or femine. Okay. Yes. One more, just to show you, like, alchemical symbols, because some of the writing in Hebrew, the script, you will also see in some of this alchemical symbols. I mean, there's even dots and stuff in here. And this one's, so arsenic actually is a symbol of the Star of David. I've talked about this before. I think in magic it can be used. So alchemically, for example, fluorite comes from fluoride. Fluoride comes from fluorite. I'm going to say that again. Fluoride, which is not good for us, comes from fluorite, the stone, which has many healing properties. And so when you have fluorite, the stone, but you've been impacted with fluoride, you can use the stone to help remove the fluoride by charging your water, doing meditations, different types of things. So my theory is that, like with arsenic and the Star of David symbol, would be a way of using poison to control poison, possibly. But anyways, I digress. So for example, auronium potable. Very curvy. And some of these symbols down here. Went over this before, but as I was like looking at the script of Hebrew, I hadn't thought of this at all. Cinnabar looks a lot like some of those squigglies. Cinnabar. Okay. So, to distill, look at this one. To distill looks similar to like the lamed and the let's see, and lamed and the other pay. Oh, okay. And I want to do that real quick. So interesting, right? Very interesting. Just because it's all really symbolism. And then how does it affect our minds? How can we use it? And then lead literally looks like the lamed in print. It's just, come on. So what is happening here? Up here. It does look like lamed when it's in print. And then another one in the script. Right? And then we see like semblances to astrology signs and symbols. Okay, I've done this one before. So I feel like I'm on this learning journey of language, what we're capable of creating in language, and how, I mean, here in this, most of it is Hebrew symbols, but this is all Latin. This is all Latin. And if you don't know Latin, so I think that's the other one, Hebrew and Latin. It can't just be Hebrew and it can't just be Latin. We would need to know both of them to really maybe understand these alchemical words and magic, so to speak. Yeah, because in Hebrew this is called a glyph, right? So these would be called glyphs. The actual letters that we see commonly, and then the more rounded and completely different looking would be called script. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so what I was saying about the alphabet, if with the pay sophit. So the sophit means when the letter lands at a certain place within the word, the letter would change. So if pay is more towards the end of the word, it would change into the more kind of like F looking pay rather than the G looking pay. Here's pay right here. So it would change. So 22, right? We do 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. It would make 26 letters, which is 8. Okay. Wait. No, I counted 27. That's what I had figured out. 20, so 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Maybe not, you guys. 24 would be 6. 22, 23. Oh, that's right. Okay. 22, 23, 24, 25. That's 7. That equals 7. 25. Yeah. Okay. I thought, because I thought there were 4 that changed, so that would add 4 extra letters, which would equal 26, not 27. Maybe there's a hidden, one more hidden changing glyph in Hebrew, because I still think it would need to add a 9. Is a theory. So maybe there's There's one we don't. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. And just a little side note of words that sound like Sybil. Like possibly, possible, Sybil right in it. Symbols, siblings, syllabus, civil, like let's be civil to each other, and sublime. Just a reminder, friendly reminder. All right. Just also another friendly reminder, you can always support me on my Patreon. Where over there I have exclusive things just for Patreon. You can also get more in touch with me personally. Right here on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, take care.